Greetings, everybody. This is Leviathan here, and today I am bringing you, finally, my tried and true speed farm for the monk. This is what I used all season long, essentially, to grind up my Paragon. A lot of people were asking me about putting a build guide together for this, even though I had a bunch of D3 planners out there and stuff. Just they wanted to walk through the paces of exactly how this build comes together. So this is the Patterns of Justice Tempest Rush monk. Like I mentioned, this was the workhorse for my Season 20 journey to make it to Paragon 4000 plus as a completely solo player. So it is, my opinion that this is the best speed farming build for solo players. We'll see if the new Gears of Dreadlands Demon Hunter can touch that. Perhaps it'll speed farm faster for solo. That waits to be seen. But this definitely gets off the ground very quickly if you're starting up a brand new monk. And it just gets more and more powerful to the point where this is the footage from the marathon stream that I did to get to Paragon 4000. Once I got sort of fully augmented and kitted out and everything like that with all the right gear, I was farming very consistent 110 GRs in the range of like 3 minutes, sometimes much faster, sometimes slower because RNG is what it is. But you can see the gameplay here is very run and gun. You're just Tempest rushing around the entire battlefield, looking for nice juicy packs of enemies to have pulled together with your Cyclone Strike that's automatically activated by your Wong Kim Lao. And then you just pop your Tempest Rush Flurry stacks, get nice big booms. Most enemies will get 1 and 2 shot. Even elites, like, they just absolutely melt. So this build is absolutely fantastic for like AFK farming, really. Like, you don't even have to think too much. You are managing a Squirt's necklace in there, so you will have to kind of evade some elite affixes. That's usually when it's most at risk for going down. But, there's even alternatives to that too if you don't want to go with that amulet, even though it is definitely the strongest DPS option. But we'll talk about alternatives. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff. Just wanted to show you some gameplay here at the beginning, like a typical run, essentially. And in the video description, there's going to be helpful links. We have a Diablo fans written version of the guide that can be very helpful. We also have a D3 planner with all of the ideal roles for gear, the legendary gems, all that stuff. So if you ever need a reference besides just the video, you got those useful links. As you can see here, we're just cruising through the rift. Like I mentioned, you get to Dashing Strike, which is one of my favorite skills in terms of Diablo 3 and movement. It's just so smooth, so crispy. You've got 100% uptime on Epiphany with Desert Shroud, like lots of defense. Like, this build is just, I never felt in trouble at all, never died on Monk once all season. It's beautiful. And you will melt Rift Guardians. Obviously there, we had a power pylon, so it's a little extra, but it basically goes like that even without a power pylon. So, without further ado, let's go ahead. So this is the Diablo, or the D3 planner that I was mentioning, but we'll actually use the Diablo fans written guide here to talk about the build and discuss the skills and gear options and mandatory pieces, all that stuff. So try not to make this too long, but you know me, I like to be pretty thorough in my build guides. Okay, so I think the first thing we should do, even though we're not going to talk about gear right away, is just go over what the Patterns of Justice set does. So the 2-piece is granting you Sweeping Wind, gaining the effect of every rune, and movement speed is increased by 5% for each stack of Sweeping Wind. In this version of the build, you'll end up with 3 stacks of Sweeping Wind, so a nice 15% increased movement speed. Just adds a little bit of pep to your step, and we have other ways to improve that as well. 4-piece set, attacking with Tempest Rush, reduces your damage taken by 50% and increases Spirit Regen by 50. So this, combined with the 100% uptime on Epiphany, is what allows you to just Tempest Rush forever. You will basically never run out of Spirit unless you're spamming the heck out of your mantra and also manage to drop Epiphany for a long time or something. You'll always be swimming in Spirit, and you even get some back from Sweeping Wind as well too. Last but not least, the big hitter, 6-piece set bonus, hitting with Tempest Rush while Sweeping Wind is active, increases the size of your Sweeping Wind and also increases all damage dealt by 15,000%. So don't be fooled, by the way. Sweeping Wind is nice. It doesn't do any of your damage. All your damage is coming from Tempest Rush. It is the big boom. It is the satisfying pops that you get. That's what's really doing the work for you. So all of your focus should be on improving your Tempest Rush damage. Never Sweeping Wind. It's just there to make sure you activate it so that you have that damage bonus on the 6-piece for Tempest Rush. Now, we'll get back to the items. For now, let's talk skills. Cyclone Strike, Wall of Wind. So there's some items that need activation, like your Caesar's Memento. It's actually the bracers we have in the cube, but you can also wear them, interchangeable with Nemesis bracers. They need enemies to have been frozen recently in order to give you a nice giant multiplier on your Tempest Rush damage. And Cyclone Strike Wall of Wind does that for you. You're going to get automatic activations of Cyclone Strike, so you actually never have to press that button if you don't want to. We just have it there on the bar, on the skill bar for the rune. If you have Wong Kim Lao in your build, which is what gives you the automatic Cyclone Strikes when you're Tempest Rushing, you're going to want the Cyclone Strike on your bar to get the special rune that you pick, which is Wall of Wind here, which freezes enemies. If you were to do it without the skill on your bar, you would just get generic Cyclone Strike and it wouldn't freeze anything. Therefore, you wouldn't activate your bracers. Next is Tempest Rush with Flurry. Already talked about this a little bit, but this is your workhorse. It's cold. The rune here is cold, so you want to stack cold damage on gear as well, on your amulet, your bracers, stuff like that. The Flurry mechanic is that as you're Tempest Rushing, you build up these stacks. They can go to 100. There's nothing that really increases the speed of those stacks accumulating. You just need to keep Tempest Rushing. But even in the speed farming version of the build, you don't necessarily care what your stacks are at. You're basically just going to pop them at ideal times, which is when you see a lot of density or against elites. Whatever number they get to is just what they get to. But against the boss, there's a little mechanic that we'll talk about with attack speed and such, and seize the initiative, and that's kind of when you care about building up some stacks. Next, Dashing Strike, Blinding Speed. So fast. Dashing Strike, again, like I always laud, it's one of my favorite movement skills in the whole game. It's just so zippy, just very responsive, especially when you're on low ping. Allows you to jump gaps, go over walls. Like, it's just so useful. There is a version of this build you can play without it, but I don't even recommend that because it just feels awkward without Dashing Strike. In a speed farm build, you just want that dash. So Blinding Speed gives you more movement speed. One of the things that I have been harping on is that defense is pretty important to the build to keep your uptime high on Squirt's Necklace, because as soon as you get taken a hit through your shield, which the shield you're getting from the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard, then you drop that Squirts and you lose a lot of damage. It's a very strong amulet. So you want to protect that defense, that shield, as much as possible. And when you're early on, you can definitely be a bit squishy. So there is a rune for Dashing Strike that gives you dodge chance. I never remember the name of it for some reason. But you can pick that one up early until you feel like your defense is in a good spot, which is usually going to happen as you accumulate more Paragon, as your gear gets better in ancient pieces, and you augment it as well with more dexterity on it. All those things will accumulate you more armor and such, and therefore your defense will be better, and you won't need to rely on things like changing the rune on Dash and Strike. However, the next skill, Mantra of Salvation Agility, this is definitely a defensive-minded skill that we're using. I almost call it a passive because it basically is. It sits on your bar. Just gives you a lot of defense here. But the idea is that you can also activate it, and when you activate it, you're going to get additional resistance. And that can be good if you're ever in hairy situations where you're amidst a ton of elite affixes and such. You want to try your best to keep your Squirt's Necklace up. Maybe that little push of extra defense will get you there. So feel free to activate that. Again, you have gobs and gobs of spirit coming back in, so you can always activate it. No problem at all. Sweeping Wind, Inner Storm, like I mentioned in the set read-through, you get all runes of Sweeping Wind, so pick whichever rune you want. It really doesn't matter. And again, Sweeping Wind doesn't do anything for you really. It's just there to, you have to make sure you keep it active so that your Tempest Rush will be doing all of its potential damage. One thing to keep in mind is that you can potentially lose Sweeping Wind if you're traversing for a while in the battlefield and there's nothing to hit. Your Sweeping Wind can drop off. And also against Vasilius, for some reason, his hitbox doesn't play very well with Tempest Rush. So sometimes you can be just Tempest Rushing, and you're not hitting Vasilius, and then your Sweeping Wind drops off. You're like, all right, pop stacks, and suddenly you do 0 damage. So just make sure you manually open up your Sweeping Wind again if you see that it's dropping off. Sometimes it's hard to catch that. Last but not least, Epiphany Desert Shroud for our active skills. Again, this is just a pure defensive skill. This is going to get you a bunch of spirit coming back in. Like I mentioned, you have 100% uptime on it. Nice thing about this also is that it makes you crowd control immune. And That is great because if you get vortexed or moved around the battlefield, you have to watch out for wormhole because that will still get you no matter what. It'll drop your stacks, and that doesn't matter as much for speed farming, but my god, in pushing, any downtime you get vortex, anytime you get wormhole, you will just be so mad. Not speaking from experience. But yeah, so this is just great in general. Again, it's mainly there for defense and to keep your crowd control immune so you not get jailed and things like that too. And you have 100% uptime because you have some cooldown on gear in Paragon, diamond in the helm and such, but also Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac is one of your jewelry pieces. So you'll definitely be getting lots of seconds knocked off of that long cooldown because your spirit's spending all the time with Tempest Rush. On to the passives. Speaking of Etar, speaking of cooldown, this just gets you a nice fat block of it. You also get some from wearing the Captain Crimson set, which we have here. Again, like I mentioned, it's some on rolls, so you get lots of cooldown, and you don't really need too much beyond your Obsidian Ring. Harmony, man, such a strong passive. This essentially turns a secondary stat into a primary stat. This gives you, for your single resistances, all resistance, a percentage of your single resistances turn into all resistance. So that's nutty. It means that your gear is going to look a little different from some of your normal characters you might be used to putting together, you know, trying to find all res where you can fit it. You're actually just going to want to see as many secondary single resistances as possible, stack those up, and then you benefit from actually having all res from that. And that allows you to open up your primary stats to just stack other stuff like area damage, critical hit damage, things like that. That'll factor into nice, fat, juicy Tempest Rush pops. So Harmony, amazing, and very good for defense, like we said. More defense, more Squirt's Necklace uptime. Next, Seize the Initiative. You're like, attack speed, what does that do for me? Doesn't Tempest Rush just do its thing? And that's true, it does. However, it doesn't really mention anywhere on Tempest Rush that it's scaled with attack speed. Your damage will go up if you have higher attack speed. So we do a few things in this build to get more attack speed, like really big gobs of it. You'll notice this scenario when you hit a speed pylon and then you start Tempest Rushing and popping on things again. You're like, oh, I'm doing a lot more damage than I used to be. And that's because speed pylons also increase your attack speed. So yeah, attack speed good. Seize the Initiative, amazing. And you'll have it up pretty much the whole time throughout the Rift because you're basically always fighting enemies above that health threshold. And this is what I was talking about against the Rift Guardian. Normal fight against Rift Guardian when you don't have a power pylon and just can absolutely pop right away is that you will whittle the Rift Guardian down as you're just Tempest Rushing it to like 75%, right where that threshold is, and you're building up your flurry stacks as you do this, and then right as the Seize the Initiative bonus is about to go away, that's when you pop your Tempest Rush. And I guess I should say too, probably should have said this earlier, but when I say pop your Tempest Rush, that basically means activate, right? Like, just basically what some people do is just take your finger off of Tempest Rush. You release the stacks, and you have to stop channeling Tempest Rush in order to do so. I find the easiest, fastest, best way to do this is to set a button on your keyboard somewhere near your skills to force move, and that way, as you can think about it, you hit that button, it force moves you, therefore you stop channeling Tempest Rush, therefore you unleash the stacks, unleash the flurry. You can also achieve this through force standstill, like I said, taking your finger off the button, or another skill that's on your mouse. So if you were to actually left click Cyclone Strike, it would do the animation for Cyclone Strike, and obviously that interrupts Tempest Rush, and then you would be able to release those stacks. So that's what we say when we say popping. But yeah, back to Rift Guardians. Once you get them down to that 75% spot, pop them, and they should go down almost in one shot, if not be very close to dead, and you just pop them again. Last but not least, near-death experiences for my hardcore friends, if you don't like to die, and also for just speed farming in general. Dying is slow, so you kind of want to not do that. I will tell you, though, that this was a very, very, very safe build in terms of never feeling like I was under threat. The only times it really was close to dying or proccing was if I was, streaming and watching stream chat, and then, oh, by the way, molten explosions are going off. That'd be the only real big pops once my gear and everything was put together, right? So I would say NDE, good for hardcore in general, but if you feel like you're going to play like in a very concentrated and astute way for your hours and hours of grinding this solo Paragon, then you can actually just switch this to Relentless Assault, which is another damage modifier for your Tempest Rush. It'll activate off of frozen enemies, which we already went over, that we're freezing everything with Cyclone Strike. So good. Swap it out for more damage. But, you know, if you want this, just for the reassurance, the insurance, feel free to keep it. All right, so that's the skills and the passives. The one, I guess I'll mention the fact that you could do a different version, which, so you would basically take Dashing Strike out, which again, I'm not a big fan of. You would put in Serenity Ascension, which is, it gives you like an immunity period of no damage incoming at all for about 4 seconds. And you would switch the Mantra of Salvation to the Mantra of Conviction with Overall, I believe, which is the one that should give you movement speed. Whichever Mantra of Conviction rune gives you movement speed. And the idea there is that you're going to really protect your Squirt's Necklace with, whenever you're against elites or anything you think is going to do major damage to, pop your pop your Serenity, and then, you know, you have that window to go in and kill everything. And you'll have good uptime on squirts. You'll have movement speed from whenever you kill an enemy with the Mantra of Conviction and that rune. And that can work, but honestly, man, Dashing Strike's just so good. That's just an option. You can definitely mess around, check out some different skills. Let me know what you think. All right, so onto the gear. Like I mentioned, we have 2 sets in use here. So the Justice set, we already went over that. And then Captain Crimson, we went over that. Obsidian Ring, we went over that. Unity is in here for more defense. If you're not familiar with the Unity combo, as the community likes to call it, that's where you wear a Unity ring or cube one, and then your follower also wears one, and your follower also must have the Follower Cannot Die token. This basically results in both of you splitting damage, but the follower never dies, and they also just never takes damage. So then you just take 50% damage less. So it's a really nice damage reduction combination. We have that in here. It's good. Use it. Like I mentioned with the bracers, interchangeable. You can likely get a better Nemesis well before you get a better Caesar's Memento to wear. So usually you're going to cube your Caesars and then wear a Nemesis bracer, because you're going to get free elites out of pylons, and who doesn't love free elites? Just makes your rifts more consistent and allows you to clear faster. Like I mentioned, for the amulets, there is the option, if you don't like squirts or you're not getting great uptime, switch it over to Flavor of Time. And if you're going to do that, then you also don't need to use Molten Wildebeest Gizzard anymore. You can swap that to Bane of the Powerful. And that's also mentioned here in the written guide as well too. But this is the best setup by far. This is the most damage. And then we'll talk about the weapons, but I'll just go ahead and switch over to D3 Planner just to give this site some love. We got weapons. Echoing Fury. So this is another item that gives us attack speed, and you're like, what the heck is Frenzy? A lot of people actually ask about that. They don't know what it does. So Frenzy, the legendary power here, is a state that you get when you kill an enemy. It can go up to 5 stacks, and each stack is worth 15% attack speed and 5% movement speed. So you can do the math. And at max, that's 75% additional attack speed and 25% additional movement speed. It is perfect for our purposes because it gives us more movement speed, which is exactly what we want as we're speed farming through these greater rifts, and more attack speed, which, like I mentioned, scales up your Tempest Rush. And you're going to have like max stacks of this all the time except against the Rift Guardian, unless it's an adds Rift Guardian. So that's great. You're just going to do crazy pop damage because of this. So don't sleep on Echoing Fury. It's really good. A lot of people wonder why it's in the build. That's why. And then Wan Kim Lao, absolutely necessary because there is a nice multiplier to your Tempest Rush in there. And like I mentioned, it allows you to activate Cyclone Strike for free with Tempest Rush. As you see that we're mousing over these, you're also looking at some of the ideal roles, like I mentioned. Let's quickly go over them so you can see them, but again, the D3 Planner link is in the video, video description below, so definitely check that out, and you can come and look at some of this juicy D3 Planner gear. This is all ideal rolls. One of the things that you're noticing is that area damage is in there, and area damage is great because the pop circle, if you will, of Tempest Rush is relatively small. It's like 15 yards, and so you'd like to reliably spread that some, right? And the idea is if you have area damage, then you might pop on one enemy, and the area damage, if it activates, you have a 20% flat chance to get area damage to radiate out from one of your attacks against an enemy. And if that happens, then it's sort of just like a chain reaction, right? Everything just blows up because it takes so much additional damage. So getting area damage where you can is great. Usually it's going to be on your weapons if you're lucky. Although Echoing Furies all roll the same, so you just change the attack speed that comes on it to area damage. Good luck with a wand Kim Lao. So many things that need to go right there. And then you can get on gloves and also shoulders. Those are like all the ideal slots to get some. For gems, diamonds everywhere in pants, chest, and helm. Legendary gems, Bane of the Trapped. You guys know this gem by now. It's just like the best DPS gem, the main DPS gem, especially for speed farming. You're gonna have it active all the time because you're gonna be in this melee range with Tempest Rush. And the secondary activates the first part, by the way. Just, you know, always reinforce these things just in case people don't know. The Taeguk, another obvious choice here for our channeling builds. We're channeling our Tempest Rush. So you're going to get the armor here, which is great for more defense, and also the damage, which is actually really good. So Taeguk, excellent. Bane of the Trap, excellent. And then this is the combination, again, if you're going to be using squirts, you want the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard because it gives you a shield that's based on your life per second. The main life per second that you're getting comes from Molten Wildebeest. So feel free to level this, jack this gem up, level this up as much as you can because it's just going to continue to improve your shield, which will continue to improve your uptime on your Molten Wildebeest and your squirts, your Molten Wildebeest shield for your squirts. And then last but not least, the cube. Ring of Royal Grandeur in the jewelry slot so that you can bring together both sets of Justice and Captain Crimson. Already talked about the bracers, interchangeable, likely going to be cubing as Caesars. And then balance is another item that gives you another great multiplier to your Tempest Rush. And that really nice part there is when you're against 3 enemies or fewer, you get 100% critical hit chance. So against Rift Guardians that are like single target, you're always critting. And that's what allows you to get those juicy pops and those Rift Guardians to go down nearly instantaneously. They're guaranteed. Emeralds in the weapons, Ramalama Ding Dong to get your sockets in there, put emeralds in there. Follower, whatever you want to do, just make sure it has the combo of Unity, and Follower Can't Die token. And I think that's everything. Whew. All right, that was a not so long video that hopefully gave you a lot of information that you need for this build. And the best part about this is it is not locked to, I used it in all of Season 20 with the crazy unlocked cube, but as you can see, it's standard cube actually. So you can do this no matter what. You can do this next season, you can do it right now as you watch this video and do non-seasonal shenanigans. The patch is coming out tomorrow, by the way. Patch 2.6.9. Actually, by the time you see this video, it might be out, or it might be a few hours before the patch comes out. Anyways, 2.6.9 is coming. Season 21 was just announced that it's coming on July 3rd. Happy 4th of July, freedom for everybody, and amazingness. So feel free to hop into the comments if you have any questions. I can definitely clear them up. I played this build so much, and I actually still love it. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more videos coming, like I mentioned, about solo Paragon leveling, efficiency. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching this one. Some more stuff coming, Season 21 hype, all sorts of good stuff. Let me know what you guys are thinking out there, and adios for now.